Move that we suspend the rules allowing for remote participation. Due to an executive order issued by Governor J.B. Pritzker and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, staff recommends a suspension of the rules regarding in-person attendance requirements for public meetings, allowing for city council members and city staff to participate in this meeting remotely. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you. It has been moved
Okay, wait, Tom, can you
and
hear me?
seconded.
So they can't hear me.
Mr. Stovak, do you mind taking the roll, please?
Councilmember Sufferton,
Here, or aye. Aye.
Councilmember Rainey,
Here. Can you hear me?
We see you, but we can't hear you. But that's
Okay.
Do we need to take a minute and
Yeah,
work
this,
through that
they can't hear
technical
us.
issue?
So are you using the
I believe
audio
so.
from your,
Should we give this another try?
sure.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey,
Here?
are you in favor of suspension of the rules for
Yes.
in-person attendance?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Fleming,
is that where we are now, council members?
Councilmember Braithwaite,
Sure, I'm here.
Councilmember Simmons, Bruce Simmons.
Yes.
All right, so on a 4-0 vote, the motion to suspend the rules allowing for remote participation has passed. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is item M1, approval of the minutes of the regular Administration and Public Works Committee meeting of April 12th, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Stovak?
Councilmember Sufferton,
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey,
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
All right, on a 4-0 vote, the minutes of the April 12th, 2021 Administration Public Works Committee meeting are approved. That brings us to public comment. Dave, could you do the honor there?
There are two speakers. First is Leslie Shad.
Okay. Welcome, Leslie. You are recognized for 3 minutes. Greetings.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much. I just wanted to encourage the Parkway planting ordinance to get further attention, perhaps at a public meeting or in some more further discussion. That was all I wanted to.
Thank you, Leslie. I think you will be pleasantly surprised when we get to that item. So I appreciate your brevity and your presence. Dave, who do we have next?
Jane Fulton Alt.
You're muted now.
Jane Fulton Alt.
Yeah, hey, Jane, I think we need you to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm seconding what Leslie had requested, and if that's the case, I don't need to say anything more.
Okay. Well,
Is it going to go to the public?
yeah, we're gonna hold it in committee with the intention of it coming back in June, and in the meanwhile, we certainly can arrange for a public meeting on it.
Okay, great. So I'll wait till then to say more. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So, in one of the most efficient public comments.
And I'm sorry, a third speaker signed up now. Mary Rosinski.
Oh, sure. Hi, Mary. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
I'm not seeing her in the meeting yet.
Okay, I don't see Mary either. We can, why don't we just hold?
Also, I'd like to say, I also have a comment. I was invited to the meeting. This is Nina Kraus by Luke, I think. Stowe.
Sure. You may speak for 3 minutes.
All right. So I'm Nina Kraus. I'm a professor, a biologist, a scientist at Northwestern University, and I study sound in the brain. So I think you know where I'm going with this. It has to do with the leaf blowing ordinance that, again, I really hope that everyone will take seriously, because there is a lot of science and biology behind the idea that
Nina, sorry, I tried to interrupt you, but that's on the agenda for the next committee meeting. Are you available for planning and development?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're welcome to make your comment. It's just the wrong audience for.
oh, sorry. So I should hold on until it'll go on like at 5 or something?
Yeah, is the plan.
Okay, I'll just hang on.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
sorry.
Oh, no, you don't. Just didn't want to waste your presentation. So, thank you. Much appreciated. And then has Mary made it? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and close out public comment and move ahead with our agenda.
Alderman Suffredin, Mary Rosinski is just coming online, as is Alderman Fleming.
Okay, great. Welcome, Alderman Fleming, and welcome, Mary Rosinski. Good to see you. You have 3 minutes when you're ready to start.
I'm going to start now? Okay, I'll start now. I'm speaking, you're talking about the Robert Crown agreement at your meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm speaking in opposition to it because I think it's a rush situation here, and that the residents have paid so much, and we're taxpayers on this deal, and what's presented in the packet is not sufficient information. So I would hope that we maybe put it in for introduction and then get some other information from staff. And it's contradictory in the packet because the memo from staff says that Northwestern can't do the construction. However, in 2017 and other times, they have contributed to projects like bike paths and Fleetwood Jourdain and Harbor Park, and I think we can work this out. So the way that I see this deal is they're just paying rack rate. There's nothing special about this. So I would encourage us not to sell ice time today at today's price for up to 3 to 5 years. Because we don't know if we're going to be raising the rate. Hockey, and we don't know what time, and we don't know when. Is it going to be prime time versus are they going to do it off season? Because I've looked into, as you know, over the years, many hockey rinks and the costs of this stuff. And during prime time, you can't get hockey rink around here at a reasonable rate at all. And this is a very reasonable rate. So please do not pass this on. Get more information from staff. There's no documentation as to what surrounding rinks are. But more importantly, we don't have times and usages. And if I were renting as a real estate deal, this is just not a good real estate deal. You wouldn't sign a contract with someone without knowing the specifics of when they intended it. They, just like Beacon tried to do is, I won't say Beacon did, but when we were doing the Beacon deal, yeah, there's 18 hours in a day and so many days in a month and a year. But when push came to shove, it wasn't until the 11th hour we found out that what Beacon had maybe prearranged with the Friends of Crown was to use the basketball court during prime time of the winter from 4:30 to 7:30, and our kids, Evanston taxpayers' kids, wouldn't be allowed to use the basketball courts at all. So I think we need details. As taxpayers, I think we need details. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
All right, so with that, I believe we have concluded public comment and we're ready to go into the consent calendar. Everyone wants to take a look and see if there are any items you wish to remove. I would recommend that we remove items A2, A4, A5, A6, A17, and that we hold item A21. Does anyone else have items they would like to remove?
I would like to remove, did you say A13,
I did
please?
not. I will remove item A13 as well.
A27?
A27.
I think you mentioned 17 and 19 already.
I did not do 19. I did 7. And then, are there any other members who have items that they would?
Moment. 827 is not on APW.
Ah,
Sorry about that.
okay. Save it for later.
Did you say A7?
I'm sorry, A7?
Question.
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get it. A7?
7.
Got it.
Can you hear me now, Alderman Sufford?
Yeah, got you now.
Thank you.
All right, is there any others, or are we good to go with the consent calendar with the exception of the?
Well, just one more moment, please. Thank you. Nothing further, Alderman Suffredin?
So I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of items A2, A4, A5, A6, A7, A13, A19, A17, and A21. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, take it away, Dave.
Councilmember Sufferton,
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey,
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming,
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite, Councilmember Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right, so on a 5-0 vote, the consent calendar with the exception of the removed items is passed. That brings us to item A2, which is approval of the BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity. Staff recommends approval of the City of Evanston BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity for the period ending February 26, 2021, in the amount of $5,619.80. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. If there's no discussion, Mr. Stoneback?
I'm sorry, was there a second on that?
Alderman Rainey seconded.
I did.
Thank you. Councilmember Sufferton,
I abstain.
Councilmember Rainey,
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming,
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite, Councilmember Simmons, Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right, so on a 4-0 vote with one abstention, the Amazon credit card activity is approved. That brings us to item A4, which is the approval of the 2021 special events. Staff recommends City Council approval of the 2021 special events that meet the current COVID-19 guidelines. Staff also recommends conditional approval of the remaining special events that are contingent upon COVID-19 guideline updates for future phases of the Restore Illinois plan. Cost for city services provided for events require 100% reimbursement from the sponsoring organization or event coordinator. These fees are waived for city events and city co-sponsored events. This is for action. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I removed this at the request of Alderman Ravel, who joins us for purposes of an amendment. Alderman Ravel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alderperson Sufferton. Hello, everybody on the AMPW committee. I want to just draw your attention to two of the special events listed it's on page 70 of your packet. These are the post 42 patio concerts. They are proposed to be held every other weekend, Fridays and Saturdays. And as currently listed, it shows them every weekend from early June to the end of October. And I'm requesting that you amend that to be from June to September. So those dates for the Friday concerts would be June 4th to September 17th, and the Saturday concerts would be June 5th to September 18th. And there's an extra concert in there which gets the number because they're also requesting Sunday, June 4th. So there's a total of 8 Friday concerts and 9 Saturday concerts. So I'm asking somebody on the committee to please make that amendment, propose that amendment.
So move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and does everyone, Dave, do you have the changes Alderman Ravel has requested?
I believe that we do, and we can listen on the video recording again.
Okay, so I think first we take a vote on the amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and do that?
Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite?
Aye.
Councilmember Ru Simmons?
Aye.
All right, so the amendment passes on a 5-0 vote, and then now the vote on the underlying item as amended.
Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite?
Aye.
Councilmember Ru Simmons?
Aye.
All right, so on a 5-0 vote, item A4 as amended passes. That brings us to
Thank
item.
you very much.
Thank you, Ellen, I appreciate it. That brings us to item A5, which is approval of a program partnership agreement with Northwestern University for the use of Robert Crown Community Center. Staff recommends the City Council authorize the City Manager to execute a program partnership agreement with Northwestern University to provide access to use the ice rinks, locker rooms, classrooms, and hockey storage space at the Robert Crown Community Center. The agreement calls for the payment of $1 million to be paid over a 3-year period while allowing the university to utilize agreed upon usage of the facility equal to or lesser than the value of $1 million for up to a maximum of 5 years. Revenues will be deposited into revenue account Crown Construction Fund donations. This is for action.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Fleming.
Yes, thank you. So I do have similar questions to that Ms. Rosinski brought up, not as much with the cost and fluctuation of the ICE cost, but in terms of the usage time. So I know long ago there was some kind of calendar that we had about time usage and a lot of concern from the community regarding who was going to be able to use it. I know that I've heard from citizens during COVID-19 when a lot of facilities were closed, yet ice skating seemed to be open for the most part from what I know. So I do not want to move forward with this until I have some better understanding of the time in which they'll be using the ice, so that it's very clear with our public users that there will still be time for them on the ice, as well as the but the classroom space that they'll be using.
All right. Alderman, just one moment. I have a question that was sent to me by the 4th Ward Alderman-elect about a discrepancy between the memo and the agreement. The memo says that the funds will be deposited in the city account, but the agreement says the funds go to Friends of Robert Crown. Lawrence, could you address that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chairman, rather.
We'll all get used to it.
Let me try it again. Thank you, Chair. Lawrence Hemingway, Director of Parks and Recreation. So I'll try to answer everything that has been brought up for your question, and then as well as Councilmember Fleming's. Councilmember Sufferton, your question about it being the discrepancy. The agreement is these funds will the payments go to Friends of Crown, and then the Friends of Crown turns around and pays the city. And so that is the reason of why the memo and the agreement is the way it is. That was the original negotiation. And so that was my attempt to explain how the funding will flow. So the payments are not paid directly from the university to the city. It goes to Friends of Crown, and then the Friends of Crown turns around and pays the city, as you guys well know. Now, as far as times, and I apologize for not including that in the memo, but part of the reason is the question about priority use and the usage of when Northwestern will utilize the facility. I was able to forward an email to you guys of their 2018-2019 schedule. You guys received that around 4:00 today. So again, I apologize it was late, but it was brought to my attention that this was a question. The university's past practice, as you see, they do not utilize it during peak times. What happens and how we schedule Northwestern and how we have always scheduled Northwestern is we put our youth programs and our skating programs on the calendar. And then we work with the university to try to fill in around that schedule. So what you guys have seen, or what I've shared with you in the email, you will see that, their time, Northwestern comes in at 10 o'clock at night sometimes, or it is 6 a.m. in the morning. There's never any time slot historically or even moving forward that we plan to give up any of what we call our peak or prime time, to the university in place of another program. And the historical practice has been that where they may come in maybe one day during their season, to come in and skate. It may be one day during the prime time on a Saturday or a Sunday, but that's for an hour, 2 hours, that's it. Their traditional time is 10 p.m. at night or a very early 6, 7 a.m. type schedule before. And I've laid out the schedule for you in the email that I sent each of you. And the reason why we didn't put a schedule there, I can't tell you at this moment what my own schedule will be come September when the agreement is in place. We can always look at our historical data and our historical schedules that shows, okay, our youth hockey group will be this time. Our ice skaters and figure skaters will be at this time. We then have rental space and time. So, I can give you past practices, but to lock that in right now, that's the reason why I didn't include it in the memo or into the packet, because I haven't set my own schedule for the fall. And that is the reason that there's no real schedule there, because the university has not asked for a specific time, and we have not committed a specific time. What we have committed and discussed very clearly is we set our schedule and we fill them in around our schedule.
Okay, Alderman Simmons, did you have a question?
I didn't. I just wanted to state, am I echoing or is this okay? I don't know what to do about it. Oh, wait, maybe, is this any better? Okay, either way, I just wanted to thank staff, Erica and Director Hemingway for being available to answer those questions before the meeting. I understand my specific questions were, would Northwestern be receiving any sort of subsidized rate? Would they be paying our market rate? They will be. They will not interfere with prime and peak time programming and public access to the rink, and that it is a prepayment of market rate rink rentals, and any programming time that is not scheduled, that revenue would be forfeited and we would have the full compensation. So I think that from what I've heard, based on best practices and the cadence of meeting and rink time for Northwestern, it seems to be appropriate and a good opportunity for us to move forward with receiving this contribution as laid out.
Does anybody else have a question? Alderman Braithwaite.
Just a quick comment. It's a comment in a read. Okay, let me try this.
I think it's better off, whatever you were doing first wasn't echoing, and then whatever you did second started back.
So I'm sorry, I was having a hard time hearing you, but I think I'm gonna repeat the question, council member. The difference you said is that it's 2 sheets of ice from Pat. That would be correct, sir.
Okay. Alderman Rainey and then Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, I'm okay with this, but I want to make it clear, this is not a contribution. They're paying for services. They're not giving us anything.
Here. Alderman Fleming.
Lawrence, can you clarify two more things for me that I didn't see in here? I understand the ICE time, and I just saw that email. What about the classroom space? Are they gonna operate the same? I know at one point there was conversation about, I think, them having a digital diva or something comparable there, so I assume that they need a set time for that. That's not gonna be kind of filling in as you're doing the ICE time. And then you mentioned them coming in or making your schedule in the fall, so they will start paying now, but they will start using in the fall, is that correct?
That is my understanding, Alderman, Councilmember Fleming, that they will, once the agreement, if the agreement is approved, they will make a payment and we will start to receive payments via Friends of Crown through their payment to the city. So yes. Now, going back to your original question, the classroom space, yes, we have been working with the university and their Digital Divas program to offer up space in Robert Crown. Right now, we can do that in a variety of spaces. We got multi-purpose room D. We have what we have termed the fish bowl or the glass bowl outside of the gym, as well as the open lobby space once you enter into the building. All those spaces can support the Digital Divas program. We will work with them to put together a calendar and a number of days and locations for their access to the building. And that's how we will set that schedule. But again, we have not set that schedule either.
Okay, and then just for clarity, because in the memo it mentions that Robert Crown does not pay us directly because they are a nonprofit. So is that the reason that you're saying they're paying Friends of Crown and then Friends of Crown is paying us?
Well, so my best guess is so the original agreement around this, Friends of Crown solicited the university for like donations like they did everybody else in the community. The university notified us that, hey, we are more interested in a program partnership agreement where we can utilize space at the facility. So that's the reason why the deal is structured the way it is. I mean, I think the Friends of Crown wanted to still count this as part of their donations or contributions. We wanted to work with them to, with the programs that they use and grow their programs that will be offered in space. So I hope that answered your question.
You're muted, Alderman Fleming.
This is the first agreement, right? There was no original agreement we had that we're modifying. You keep saying the original agreement, but I want to be real clear. This is the first agreement, correct?
Yes, this is the first and only agreement with the university for use and access to Robert Crown.
Okay, just want to be clear that people don't.
Yeah, not a different agreement. I think the way the talks progressed, it started one way and then it ended up in this program partnership.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Lawrence, I have a couple of questions. Historically, what have been their game times, and do they charge admission? Do you know? It might be in that email that you sent.
Yes, sir. So I'm looking at the email. So there's practice time, game slots. So game slots, 10:50 p.m. to 1:20 a.m. on one, and then there's sometimes on a Saturday, they got 3 Saturdays where they did a 5:30 to 8:05 p.m. time. So, but their majority of their games were 10:50 p.m. to 1:20. Okay. Additional game slots, all 10:50 or 10:05 p.m. So not very many during our prime time slot.
All right. And do you know if they charge admission for those games, or is it free to anybody?
I'm not off the top of my head, so I do not know that answer. No, here it is. No, they do not charge admission.
Okay. And does our agreement preclude them from charging admission, or is that just something that they haven't done?
No, they have not. It's a club team, so it's not it's a club team and a synchronized swimming team. So they don't charge, to watch or participate.
And then just to piggyback on what Alderman Rainey said, so this is being counted as a contribution for Friends of Robert Crown purposes, but this is not really a contribution because they are paying a fee for service. Is that accurate? I'm not asking you to opine on it, but I guess this counts as a contribution for Friends of Robert Crown purposes is one question.
Yes,
And then this is actually really a fee for service.
yes.
Okay. And I think, and that's this council's responsibility, and I think we've been very permissive with Friends of Robert Crown in allowing them to count contributions that aren't truly contributions, including money that came from the state, or in this instance, this is a fee for service that we're allowing them to count as a contribution, and that's not entirely true either. And for that reason, I am going to vote no, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Unless there's anything else, we can take the vote. Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate your answers.
Councilmember Suffolk.
No.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
I'm going to support this to go to council, but I would like Director Hemingway to provide that information that we just had a thorough discussion on for the public to digest, so we don't have these same questions later, please.
What's your vote?
Councilmember Braithwaite. Councilmember Ru Simmons.
Aye.
Okay. So on a 4-1 vote, item A5 passes. That brings us to item A6, which is approval of a sole source purchase agreement with Insane Impact for a portable LED screen. Staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a sole source purchase agreement with Insane Impact in the amount of $119,250 for a portable LED screen that will be used to provide additional COVID-safe outdoor recreational opportunities for the community. Funding will be provided by the Capital Improvement Fund 2021 General Obligation Bonds. While this purchase was not budgeted, funding is available through savings in the McCullough Park project and the use of Parks contingency. The return on investment will be achieved in less than 3 years due to the reduced staffing needed to implement, as well as no longer renting the equipment on an annual basis. This is for action. Is there a
Second.
All right. Are there any questions on this one? If not, or Alderman Fleming.
I have a quick question, Lawrence. In your memo, you mentioned that this is going to reduce staffing needs. How many staff do we use for the current projector, and how many would you need for this one? I mean, give me an estimate here.
I mean, so weather is always a portion or a problem. If it's really windy, it takes, multiple, like 4 to 5 people just to hold it in place until the inflatable system is in place, and then you got to stake it down in the time frame it does that. Where this is just driven and is operated and can be lifted by one person. So you're looking from 4 to 5 down to 1. And this takes 10 minutes to set up versus at times we're out there 45 minutes to an hour messing with that inflatable, trying to get it in place to operate and secure. So, there is a staffing savings by moving to this more modernized system.
Okay, thank you. And then a comment for, I guess it's the city manager or maybe it's Mr. Stonebeck's department. Happy to support this. I am a little bit frustrated that I'm glad to have a savings, but I'm not sure how we overestimated, with the park, that we now have money left for this. I know this came forward last year and we did not support it because it was COVID and we didn't have the money. So hopefully this will make our experience much better this summer, but I just would love to see us kind of project these projects a little bit more efficiently.
All right, and I see City Manager Storley, if you want to respond to that, or if you're just coming to say hi, that's fine too.
I would be happy to respond to that. Thank you. I just wanted to note that in an average year, the city estimates anywhere from $8 to $15 million worth of capital projects, and for the most part, we hit the mark. But it's an estimation. It's not an exact science. So sometimes we are seeing savings here and there. Sometimes we see overages where we have to come up with more money. Luckily, we haven't seen that yet this year, and hopefully we won't. But by and large, our average rate of hitting the mark is pretty solid, but it does vary project to project. But we'll take the feedback into consideration as we move forward. Thank you.
All right, and Alderman Rainey, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Sufferton. I'm really happy that we're, feedback. I'm very pleased that we're doing this purchase because I have been at our outdoor movies where the screen has collapsed and little children are crying, and it's just a rather pathetic scene for a city our size and for the quality of shows that we're trying to screen. We finally have something, hopefully, that will be a permanent thing and that we can count on seeing a show from beginning to end without interruption. So I really do support this. I think our community is entitled to this quality. So I support it.
Alderman Braithwaite. All right, and I have a couple of questions, Lawrence, if you don't mind. I looked around a little bit on the Insane Impact website over the weekend. Is there a reason that we picked this screen rather than the larger one or one of the smaller ones? Was this size picked for anything?
Yeah, I mean, just estimating the crowds that we, in the type of usage is the reason why I went with this screen. I mean, the goal here is to make our experiences, improve the customer experience, improve our residents' experience. And so, you know, COVID has led us all to get outside and get in the parks. So with a large enough screen, we could socially distance and spread out and accommodate more people to our movies in the park. We could, instead of, you know, from a family-friendly perspective, you know, in the peak of the summer, sir, we are waiting until dusk. That's 8:45, 9 o'clock at the height of the summer. You know, and now you're talking with little children. All our movies are family-friendly. And so now you're talking about being able to show these movies at 2, 3 in the afternoon, 12 o'clock noon. That's the reason why Insane Impact. I did some homework when looking at this, trying to identify others. They are the leaders in park and recreation entities in terms of providing this type of a product. And so I felt very confident. I reviewed their materials. They can return, we can get it, a product in hand within 6 to 8 weeks. That was the recommendation of why I made to try to proceed with that particular company.
Okay, and do we look at renting at all? And do we?
So that's a decision now that we can consider. Would we be interested in using this new asset to generate additional revenue?
If you look at renting from Insane Impact, on the website you could rent the screen from them.
No, because, you know, we go down this path and start renting it versus purchasing it. We've done this before. We rent equipment, it becomes our normal process. And 3-4 years down the road, we have paid for it. And so it's always best to, in my opinion, to buy it, own it. We have a 5-year warranty of the equipment. And so that's what my recommendation was to purchase.
Okay, and you're open to looking at other opportunities to generate revenue, whether it's through advertising or renting to other organizations? Okay.
We absolutely plan to try to capitalize on this new asset as much as possible.
Okay, I appreciate it, and I know you're in a difficult spot where you need to balance the programmatic advantages of a purchase like this against the financial cost. So I'm going to be respectfully a soft no on this one, because I think it's just really tough in a year where we raise property taxes to tell people that we're going to spend $120,000 on a LED screen while people are still struggling. But I appreciate the situation you find yourself in, and I appreciate that you're forward looking. And I think, you know, if we're smart about how we utilize it, it could be a great thing for the city, but respectfully, I'm going to be a no. And then if there's no other questions, we can go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Sufferton.
No.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Councilmember Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right, so on a 4-1 vote, item A6 passes. Item A7, Alderman Braithwaite, were you the one who pulled that one?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for our staff. I really do have one proposal.
Why don't we introduce it first? All right, do you want to do that, or you want me to? All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Over discussion. Alderman Braithwaite.
So my question is there
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Sean Cholik, Division Manager of Facilities and Fleet Management. In regards to why we went with the single source quote, currently we already have Verizon in place for our vehicle ABL system. By utilizing them again and going to the new platform, it allows us to keep the existing ABL devices and hardware in the vehicles. Those will work with the new platform, which the cost of the original ABL devices was approximately $17,000. So we're anticipating a savings in that respect. Also, it will be easier to migrate over to this new platform since it's going from Verizon to another Verizon platform. And this is also a Sourcewell contract, so joint purchasing contract, bid winner.
All right, are there any further questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Sean. Dave, take it away.
Councilmember Sufferton.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
I don't see Cicely on the screen.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Councilmember Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right, on a 4-0 vote, item A7 passes. That brings us to item A13, which is approval of change order number 1 to the agreement with Lake Erie Diving Incorporated for the 54-inch intake heater cable replacement. Staff recommends the City Council authorize the City Manager to execute change order number 1 to the agreement with Lake Erie Diving for the 54-inch intake heater cable replacement in the amount of $34,991. This will increase the overall contract amount from $844,118 to $879,109. Funding for this project is from the Water Fund, which has an approved fiscal year 2021 budget of $1 million for this work, all of which is remaining. This is for action.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Alderman Fleming.
Yes. Dave, I had a question about something that was in the memo for this. So, I'm sorry. So it says in the memo, if I'm remembering it correctly, that the contractor, you guys estimated one size of pipe or cords or whatever it was, and then it was realized that there was another part or another size needed. It sounded like from the way the memo was written that the contractor went ahead and made that adjustment before they spoke to you. Did I read that correctly?
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Dave Stoneback, Public Works Director. The original cable installed in 2010, 2011, by design had the smaller cable design in it, and there was a change order on that contract to increase it to the larger size cable. When we bid the project this year to replace it, we went through the original contract documents and forgot to check the change order, which increased the cable size. And the contractor realized that the cable size was larger and brought it to our attention. And we're approving that change now. He did not purchase the new cable or anything at this point in time. He just brought it to our attention.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, are there any additional questions? If not, Dave, please take it away.
Councilmember Sufferton.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Councilmember Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right, so on a 5-0 vote, item A13 passes. That brings us to item A17, which is resolution 50R21, directing city staff to issue an RFP to study the feasibility of relocating the Civic Center. Staff recommends city council adoption of resolution 50R21, directing city staff to issue an RFP to study the feasibility of relocating the Civic Center. A feasibility study would provide additional information to the city council about potential costs of relocating the Civic Center. Additionally, the study would also inform the discussion regarding consolidation of city services in a single facility and what cost savings could be achieved from that possibility. Lastly, the study would provide information as to the feasibility of adding additional square footage to any potential new facility that could be utilized for additional institutional, educational, commercial, or affordable housing uses. If approved, staff would issue a request for proposals and return to City Council with the award of the RFP to a consultant who would conduct a feasibility study. Adoption of the resolution is not a vote to vacate the Civic Center. Rather, it is providing the information that the City Council and the community will ultimately need to make the decision to stay or to vacate when the time comes to make it. This is for action. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion from members of the committee? Alderman Fleming.
Yes, there he is. City Manager Storley's here. I spoke to her earlier regarding my concerns. Do you want to just go ahead and address those, or should I make a question, Erica?
Way.
Okay, so my concern is not so much a feasibility study, it's that we haven't really had a discussion in public regarding what's happening with the Civic Center now. You know, we had a report before COVID about all of the HVAC work and such that needs to happen. And then even at that point, we talked to the community about, you know, having a bigger discussion community-wide before we've made any more decisions. And while I understand this isn't a decision, City Hall's been closed, and I continue to get questions about if services are going back to City Hall, kind of where things are in this COVID world. So I just wanted us to have more information about where we are currently, where you see us going, you know, in the near future with the usage of City Hall, and then kind of what a long-term plan would be, even with this feasibility study, so that people are very clear on what we're doing and what we're not doing.
Certainly, and thank you for bringing those up, all excellent points. So the Civic Center has been closed since March of last year. We are currently evaluating what, if any, public-facing uses could return to the building. We anticipate that at some point in the near future, we're going to have this hybrid version of Zoom and, you know, in-person meetings worked out, and we'll be able to allow in-person meetings to occur simultaneously with online meetings. And so there will be some resuming of activities in the Civic Center to support our city council meetings and our committee meetings. But in addition to that, we're still evaluating what makes sense going forward for the public-facing services. So the collector's office has been operating out of Crown for most of the last year. Seems to be working okay, pretty well in some people's minds. So we're going to continue to evaluate that, and then also look at if we were to move it back to the Civic Center, where might it go so that we could have a better separation of public-facing services from staff offices. Additionally, since the last time we updated the council on this issue, we've all looked closely at the Climate Action Resilience Plan to determine how anything we might do to the existing Civic Center fits in with that plan. And the plan requires a pretty large investment of engineering services on the front end, and then potential rehabilitation on the back end in order to comply with the requirements of our climate action plan if we were to stay in the Civic Center and renovate it. So that's something that staff would need additional time to delve into, and would most likely require additional resources or contracted engineering services in order to determine what those exact costs might be. So in addition to doing the feasibility study of what a potential relocated civic center might cost us, it's likely that I'll come back in the near future to also request a feasibility study of what potential costs might be if we were to stay in the existing civic center. So those two pieces of information, once we had them, would then open up the door for us to have a community meeting about civic center and look at various options and see what people think makes the best sense for us going forward. If we were to consolidate the facilities, certainly there's going to be some savings there with staffing and with maintenance and long-term replacement costs. So there's value to be added there. If we were to relocate the civic center, there could be additional partners who may want to have space in a joint facility, whether they be educational partners or other nonprofits or other institutional partners that we have not identified. So that's a conversation we would like to have with the council and the community. Lastly, there's also always the option, somewhat innovative, but not entirely brand new. This has been done in the city of Chicago for a while. They have libraries that are combined with affordable housing, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that any future site of the civic center could contain some element of affordable housing on the site, maybe not adjacent, but maybe not on top of, but maybe adjacent to. So it's just an opportunity to look at that, knowing that affordable housing is one of the primary goals of the city council. So if we do release this feasibility study, RFP, we will return to the council once we have somebody to award the contract to, and then that will be voted on. And I would suggest that that would be the point in time when we would have a larger discussion amongst all the council members when the new council is seated about what direction people might be thinking we're headed and what other components we may want to consider as we look forward to this decision.
All right, any funding?
I just have one follow-up thing. So walk me a little bit, can you talk about the timeline? Because as we know, we have a new council coming in just, less than a month. And so if we approve this feasibility study, you'll have staff work on it to go after RFP. You'll come back to RFP. What is the downside of waiting to start this process once a new council comes so they can follow the whole thing all the way through?
It would just be more time to get the information because we have to draft the RFP, release the RFP, and then give anybody who's going to respond to the RFP, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to respond to the RFP. Probably longer in this instance because we're asking for a lot of information. I would anticipate we'd want to give people who would respond to this, potentially as much as 90 days. It's a lot of calculations that are going to need to be made, a lot of scenarios that are going to need to be evaluated. So if we didn't put this forward now, it would just be a lot more time that we'd be adding on to any potential receiving of the information. And if we were to put it forward now and release an RFP sometime in the next, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, and then give people a chance to bid on that RFP, I expect that this council or the next council would see this coming back to them for an award sometime in the summer.
Okay, is there anything further? Alderman Braithwaite. Peter, I can't hear you real well. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Eric, I guess if you could help me understand. Okay, thank you, Peter. What would you anticipate would be in this that goes beyond the scope of the Jones Lang LaSalle city asset study that was done within the last year?
So the Jones Lang LaSalle survey or evaluation really just took a list of all of our city assets and sort of made a recommendation about which ones of them would make sense to look at to repurpose. And so this was one that they identified on that list as, possible repurposing use or, validation opportunity. But what it didn't provide, what Jones Lang LaSalle didn't provide in that city assets RFP was any kind of costs as to what it might cost the city if we were to move forward with a relocation or a consolidation. We want to be very mindful of how much any relocation or any staying in the facility would cost and be able to compare those side by side. There could be opportunities if we were to evaluate these various options of affordable housing and other institutional partners. There may be other capital that would come in to support those other proposed uses. So those kinds of mathematics were not evaluated as part of Jones Lang LaSalle. So we would want to understand what value there may be added to any of those various scenarios and what costs there may be. There's obviously going to be a lot of different credits available if we go with any kind of affordable housing co-use. But there's also going to be other partners that may be interested in co-locating with the proposed civic center that would also bring capital to the table that could help support the construction of the facility.
Okay, and you think that would be part of this study, would be what potential partners there may be? Without necessarily being super specific, but it would identify potential partners and put the next council in a position where they can make an informed decision relatively quickly?
Well, it's my expectation that they would identify all of those things and that enough information would be provided that the council could then make a decision. I'm just not sure about the quick part that you mentioned.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any further questions? We may as well vote.
Councilmember Suffolk.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right, so on 5-0 vote, item A17 passes. That brings us to item A19, which is resolution 46R21, authorizing the settlement and release of all claims of Elijah Murphy versus City of Evanston et al. Staff recommends City Council approval of resolution 46R21, authorizing the City of Evanston to issue payment pursuant to a settlement agreement and release in the case of Elijah Murphy versus City of Evanston et al. Funding will be provided from the insurance fund settlement cost liability. This is for action. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Alderman Fleming, you removed this?
Yeah, I did. I have a quick question for staff, and it's actually information they can bring back later, but I will approve this if the judge has determined we need to pay this, then I will approve it. But I would like for another conversation, Brian, if you can bring back the total cost of lawsuits based on findings from EPD. And I asked that because I think just last week or 2 weeks ago when we had our budget update, we looked at the insurance fund, which is, I think, pretty big deficit at this point. So I'd like to start looking at where those lawsuits have been paid. So if you can bring that back at another time, that would be great.
We'll bring that to, well, first of all, thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Brian George, Assistant City Attorney. I will bring that to Corporation Counsel's attention. He will be staffing the City Council meeting, but I'll let him know before then.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other comments? If not, I just received a note, Alderman Braithwaite, you are inaudible. So Anderson, if we could figure out how to...
Can you hear me now, Alderman Sufferton?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I think it's on the broadcast.
Yeah, I turn off my mic just because it's echoing from our end. So I'll be sure to have it on during the votes.
Okay, just make sure we get it figured out for the rest of tonight. All right, so with that, Dave, we can take a vote on item A19.
Councilmember Suffolk.
Aye.
Councilmember
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right, so on a 5-0 vote, item A19 passes. And then just to reiterate, item A21 is held in committee, which brings us to items for discussion. Are there any items for discussion?
Chair, Chair Suffredin, hold on a second. I'm sorry. Okay. Brian George, Assistant City Attorney. If you wanted to hold item A21 in committee, I believe you'll have to make a motion.
Okay. All right. I move that we hold item A21.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Brian. It's been moved and seconded. We need a vote.
Councilmember Suffredin.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
All right. In a 5-0 vote, we all agreed to hold item A21, parkway plantings, in committee. That brings us to items for discussion. Does anybody have an item for discussion? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Do we need to take a vote, Dave?
Not 100% sure, but we'll go through it real quick. Councilmember Suffredin.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Councilmember Simmons. Ruth
Aye.
Simmons.
Robin, you're aye on adjournment?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so that's 5-0. We're legit adjourned. Planning and development is posted for 5 o'clock, so we can start it in 5 minutes. Does that sound good? I'll go ahead and say 5:40 and hope that everyone's here then. That works? All right. Chair Wynn says that works. So see everyone at 5:40 for planning and development.